All right, we're live.
Sweet.
Welcome.
Yay. Barely alive.
We're on like episode 197 now. 3 more before the big 200. It's crazy.
We got to end it at 199.
Yeah.
Go out on a high note.
Yeah.
There we go. Pull a TV thing, right? Put it to be continued and then never continued.
Yes.
Yeah, I hate that when shows do that. They get canceled, but they left you on a cliffhanger.
My wife and I watched My Name is Earl, which was just doubly entertaining for us. But it ended like that. Like they basically found out I forget what it was, but it was like they found out that Earl had the secret kid or something, and then like that was it. And there was no season 5.
They don't necessarily think this through. Like that's the thing. It's like that was like the last time I watched TV really was Lost, when I was like, last season. I was like, you guys, you didn't know what you were doing. Like they had all these like threads that they had created. And you're like, okay, I can't wait to see how they weave this. Like, why was the bird like? Why was the kid like the magnet? Or whatever. There was some kind of like, and it was like, no, we're not going to tell you that, because it was like, it's all the purgatory. Like they just came up with some bullshit answers. So like,
I know,
putting all these things together. So
I know it's remarkable to go back and think about how intricate the deception was.
Yeah.
I think what they did was like. What really got me was the way that they would have all this footage. They'd show like the old scenes from multiple angles, right? Like that was, they'd show you another character's perspective on a scene that happened back in season 2 or something,
right?
Like 3 seasons back. And you're like, man, they have to have had some kind of master plan but it's like, no, they just had like crap footage that they were like, oh, let's just grab that reel and use that. But yeah, I mean, it looked so intricate to me, and I was so angry.
But there's such great shows out there that had like a defined story arc. So you have How I Met Your Mother. They knew where they wanted that to go, and they ended it the way they wanted to end it.
Yeah.
Battlestar Galactica, same thing, right?
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Battlestar Galactica. That last season was a train wreck.
Yeah, it did get a little bit. Anyway, but they ended it on the terms that they wanted to end it on, right?
Mm-hmm.
They completed the story arc and wrapped up a lot of the hanging threads out there that they had.
So on to business.
Yay, business!
So we hired I think we talked about last time, we hired a new employee.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So far, he's doing good. We'll see. He's probably going to become our SEO person, is what it looks like.
Yeah,
which is cool. We need some SEO help, and we probably have writers that will be coming on board. So
yeah, we've got. So one thing that I noticed this week that was pretty interesting, and Chuck, I don't know how much of an impact this will have on you, but I haven't seen anybody talking about this yet, but Google has rolled out, it seems like they've rolled out a change, and I don't know if it's like I'm on their early test. It's possible that I'm in their early test group or something, but when I'm on mobile now, they're only showing me 3 or 4 search results. So basically now what I see is like, I do a search, I see, usually I see like the position 0, which is like, a big result that they highlight, and then they'll pull out some snippet that they think answers my question. And then there will be 3 or 4 links under that. And then there's a whole bunch of related searches. And sandwiched between them, there's a show more results button that's pretty small.
Oh, yeah.
And is that what you're seeing too now, John?
Let me see here. So
basically what they've done is they've effectively, on mobile now, if you're not in the top 4 search results, you don't exist. So now page 1 on mobile is the top 3 to 4 results, and then I also noticed if you tap show more, they stick ads in amongst the organic links. So it seems like they're getting more tricky with their placement of the ads as well, and they're not super clear. Like there's a little tiny green ad thing, but it's really not that clear. But it hit me when I was looking at this. I'm like, okay, Google is really devious. So what they've done, they rolled out all this new stuff, this data, all these new data formats, right? Like, oh, if you put you use this semantic markup on your page, we're going to we're going to highlight that on the page. Well, what they're doing is they're actually getting people to stay on Google and not click through to your site. They want people to stay on their, just like every other website. They don't want people to click through to your site. They want people to stay on Google and click Google ads and spend more time on Google. So what they're doing is they're getting people to serve up their very best content and say, here, Google, please show this to make me more prominent. And then people see it and they get their questions answered without ever leaving Google. Well, so it's kind of a dual-edged sword. Like, you get a little more visibility, but you lose the traffic, so you don't have the opportunity to do anything with it.
Well, because they've started doing that question thing. So if you type a question in Google, there'll be like 5 answers, right? And you can click to expand it.
You can click through it. You can see all the answers right there, and you never have to click through. And I can't, like, I wanted to make I have this oatmeal that I was making the other night. I forget what it's called, the steel cut oats, and it's from this one company, so I wanted to find out their recipe for it. So I Googled Bob's Red Mill oatmeal recipe, and boom, it was one of the questions right there. I unfolded it. I never went to their website.
Right.
So yeah, very well played, Google. Well played.
But you know what? This is the thing. This is like what I was saying about the whole net neutrality thing, which I got my balls.
Oh gosh.
So pissed off about that. But it's like, I don't give a shit, because if you lower the playing, like, everyone has to play in the same sandbox. So when shit like this happens, I actually welcome it, because I know that I'm good at adapting and most people aren't. So it's the anti-fragile strategy, right? I want things to be shaken up, because I want because my competition falls out, because if everyone has to deal with the same problems, right? And it's the same thing, like I was saying with the net neutrality, is it's like, yeah, okay, fine. You start making it harder. Like, the most beautiful thing that that could happen would be if the ISPs, like, said, okay, in order for you to have a YouTube channel, if you want to have your content delivered, you have to pay us. You have to pay $1,000 a month. I'd be like, yes, awesome. This is great. Like, all my competition, like 90% of my competition isn't going to do that, but I'll pay $1,000 a month. You know what I mean? And so they're going to get wiped out, and I'm going to get more. You know what I mean? And so I guess the best way I could describe this was
the thinning of the herd.
Yeah. So one time I used to play this mud online, right? And there was this one room in the mud, right, that you could pull this chain. Like, if you type pull chain, it would do like 200 fire damage to everyone in the room, right? So everyone is like, they didn't know how to use this thing, right? So I was like, this is great. This is a great opportunity. So what I did was I found a bunch of equipment and stuff to raise my hit points as high as possible. Then I invited everyone to meet me in that room, right? For, a meeting. I was like, I got like, 20, 30 people into that room. And you know what I did? Pull chain, pull chain, pull chain, pull chain, pull chain. Wiped everyone out. They all died, right? And I looted all their shit, and I was the only one standing.
You only need to be 1 hit point stronger than the strongest person in the room, and you win.
Well, so when I see stuff like this,
200 hit points in that case.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe I'm a little bit of a sociopath, but when I see stuff like this, I think of opportunity, because I think most people are going to take the 200 fire damage and die. And so it's like whatever curveball that they throw, like, as long as we're willing to adapt to it, that's the thing, is like, it's going to shake other people out and make it, make it better for you. So as long as you can take that anti-fragile approach. So
yeah.
Because that's the only way you can look at it. Otherwise, you're like, I mean, it's like trying to hold on to shit that, just because it doesn't make sense. Like, it's better to have the mindset of like, okay, let them do crazy shit because we'll just adapt to whatever they do. Like, to say the whole ad apocalypse on YouTube, it was like, okay, so what? You know, if I'm making my money off of ads, then I've got to figure out something. I mean, luckily we weren't making our money off of ads, but in fact, our ad revenue went up. So I don't know.
It did go up. We cracked $2,000 for the month for the first time, I think. So
well, the other thing is that for me at least is that you know, I tend to work off of like what's the, you know, ground level principle on this, right? What is right and what is true. And I don't want the government involved in any of these systems that I use. I don't want them involved in my phone. You know, they've been collecting all that data because they just have one little finger through the FCC into the cell phone companies. And they collect all the data off of, you know, where I'm going and what I'm doing and who I'm texting, and they have all that metadata and probably more. They just haven't made that public. You know, they get their finger into some other little pie and they regulate it, and then they use it against people. You know, the IRS is another one, right? You know, theoretically, they're supposed to audit people who look like they owe more in taxes than what they paid and what they filed. But instead, they used it to go and audit conservative groups, you know, back a while ago. And so whenever the government gets power, they have a tendency to abuse it. And so I just don't want them to have any power whatsoever over the internet. I mean, the fact that the FCC has decided that they think they can regulate it makes me uncomfortable. You know, the reason the internet became so successful in the first place is because it was a place that the government couldn't or wouldn't control back in the 90s and early 2000s. So anyway, and then people are like, well, so how much are you going to wind up paying to get your content out there? And I'm just like, you know what?
Whatever it costs.
You know? Yeah. Well, the other thing is that honestly, you know, they can, you know, even if they block my content, you know, they block the podcasts or make them really freaking slow or something. I mean, I can go on Twitter and say, hey, look, you know, Comcast said I have to pay to play. And all of a sudden, people are going to start leaving Comcast if they really want my stuff.
Well, wait a minute. But see, this is the argument that people make. They say, but I don't know about you, but I don't have any choices between ISPs in my area. Right.
Well, and that's because
monopoly.
And that's because the state and local governments make it really hard for anybody else.
That's a separate problem. That's a separate problem.
But if enough people are pissed off, that's the thing. It's like, I don't care if it gets bad, because when things get bad, that's when things change. Because I guarantee you, if Comcast, they're not going to do it. First of all, they know that they've got monopolies. It would be so stupid for them to do that and screw the consumer, because then they're going to, like, when you have a monopoly, it's the same thing like I said about billionaires. You know why billionaires are all Democrats? Because they don't want people to fuck them up. Because if you're a billionaire, you're like, oh, hey, I'm cool. I'm good for the rest of my life. Like, I don't want to, like, let's take the ladder and let's knock it down, because I don't need the ladder anymore. We'll just knock it down, right? I don't want anyone else climbing up here and messing with me. So we'll knock the ladder down. Oh, let them eat cake? Let them eat cake. Fine. Great. Let's give them whatever they want, so that they don't come with pitchforks and take from me. Like, the only thing you're afraid of as a billionaire is that as a revolution, right? And historically, this is what happened: is people that have wealth, right? Look at France. Look at all the revolutions that happened throughout Europe. It was like, hey, aristocrats, right? These guys had all the money, and then people came with pitchforks, put them on the guillotine, hung them, killed them, right, and took all their shit. So if you're a billionaire, that's what you're doing. And so it's the same thing. I just went way off track, but what I'm saying is, that's what, if you're an ISP with a monopoly, you're in the same position. You're not gonna rock the boat. You're not gonna, like, you're in a sweet spot. You're charging way more than the market price for internet access. You want to keep people, like, people are disgruntled with Comcast and Verizon and all this shit, but they're not disgruntled to the point that they got the pitchforks out. So I don't think that's gonna happen. And if they do, if there's enough pain, then people will come up with other solutions. Then something like innovation will happen. You can't stop innovation, right? I mean, this is the thing. It's like we're just like, when you try and prevent pain artificially, it's the same thing as the Federal Reserve. It's a stupid idea, because when you try to control monetary policy to prevent people from feeling the pain that they need to feel, you just make it worse later on, like, and you prevent innovation from happening. Like, you have to let things that are not sustainable crumble. And if you don't, then you feel it, you just extend the pain. And that's what's happened with this whole thing at this point. And so,
leprosy is a disease that causes you to lose the sensation of feeling. You can't feel pain anymore. And that's why they didn't realize that for a long time, but that's actually why people start to get all disfigured and lose limbs and lose fingers and stuff. It's because they're not getting that pain feedback.
Yeah, my dad he always jokes about missing 3 toes, and it's not leprosy, it's diabetic neuropathy. But it's the same exact idea, right? He loses sensation in his toes. He doesn't get good circulation in his toes. And so when he gets a sore, he doesn't know about it.
Right.
And then eventually it gets infected, and then they have to take the toe. But the other thing is that, all of these things, they go out and they regulate a lot of this stuff by creating rules that people have to play by. And then all of a sudden, in order to start a competing business, it's not just getting out there and providing the service, but you have to get out there and provide the service and have an expert in your company that knows how to navigate around HIPAA or the FCC regulations or whatever. And so it benefits the incumbents, and it keeps competition from coming in.
Right,
and that's what happened with the ISPs as well, is that, the local government or the state government in a lot of cases has made it really hard for new internet providers to come in, and then the FCC adds on all these rules that they have to follow. And a lot of people are like, the majority of the cost is laying the cable, and that may be the case. But if it's that expensive to lay the cable, and then you have to have experts to know how to navigate the rest of this garbage, I mean, it just doubles the cost of starting your ISP. And what I'm hoping to see is we see more innovation in the over-the-air internets.
Exactly.
We also are seeing a lot of innovation in the satellite internet space, where satellite internet isn't horrendously slow anymore.
Yeah, well, look at. I mean, Elon Musk has a plan to do the whole satellite internet. That's something will happen. Like, that's the thing. It's like it will, and the thing is, like, it's private ownership is the answer to all this stuff. Even the laying the cables, right? I mean, the thing is, like, people say, well, it's government funded, but it's because the government comes in to fix the problems they created. And that's like, it's a government. You can't solve a government created problem by more government. It's like, I agree with the whole concept of net neutrality. Like, it makes sense. Like, it'd be cool. Like, it's great, but it needs to come about naturally. And if it's a forced compliance, there's a problem with that. And the other thing is that's so crazy. This is like where I feel like I'm in bizarro world. That like I mean, you probably saw my video. 1,000. I've got like 1,000 downvotes on this video on the net neutrality. Death threats galore.
It's like a 10 to 1. It's like a 10 to 1 downvote to upvote ratio. It's crazy.
Most common response is "fuck you." Like, that's literally, like, people are just like, you should put a gun in your mouth and pull the trigger. Like, this is the response I'm getting, right? So, but the thing is, like, people think that internet is a right. How is internet a right? This is like a luxury. This is a luxury item, right? I mean, this is the thing. It's like, internet is not a right. It's not like, like clean water, and this is absolutely ridiculous. But we've got this such entitled mentality today that I got to get my Netflix, and I got to get my and I got to check my email. Like, I mean, I like using the internet. I make a living using the internet, but it's not a right. Like, I'm paying for it. Like, and it's really, like, right now, if you think about it, considering what the technology allows you to do, even the ISPs that are gouging people at like $100 a month for 20 megabyte service, that's insane. Like, you think about how much value you're getting for that $100 a month. It's an insane amount of value. What I mean? I remember getting dial-up, right? And with 200, with a 56K modem. I remember doing dial-up with a 9600, actually a 2400 baud modem. Okay, do you remember what those days were like, and how much you're paying for? Like, it's just insane. It's insane to think that internet's a right. So again, what's
the bandwidth on me when before the internet, riding my bike over to the library? I mean, for heaven's sake, right?
Yeah.
It's just and it's so new that Anyway, and you can get it anywhere. I mean, you walk into McDonald's, they'll let you get on the internet for free.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you could get it for free. I mean, yeah. So
anyway, we should probably talk about our businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. We're just,
that's what this show's about.
That's somewhat relevant.
But anyone watching or listening, you can just send all the fuck yous to me. Like this, I'll take like, I'll take it. I'll take it.
I had a bunch of people on Twitter and stuff get upset with me too.
But I'll say one last thing about this. It's not because people actually think this. It's because of the herd mentality. It's because if you are a programmer or you're in the technology space, you're supposed to support net neutrality. You probably don't even know like why. Just some like, like someone has like manipulated you into believing that this is the right. And if you don't, then you're evil. And this is just the kind of thinking, like, if you honestly just suss it out for yourself and say, what is really the implications that will happen? Like, what's the worst thing that's actually going to happen to me and affect my life? It's just scare. It's like, we don't even know. It's likely nothing bad will happen, but people are just overreacting to this because they're just falling right into the herd mentality. And they're so, that's the backlash that we're seeing. Like these people are just, they're acting out of like, if something triggers you, it's a good, it means that it short circuited your cerebral cortex, right? So if you see something, and this is just a good like just thing in general, if something happens and you immediately go to anger, like you see a tweet or something like that, it means that it short circuited the cerebral cortex. So it means that you did not, that you have an ingrown, an instinctive, like you have created some kind of connection that is completely connected to the emotional center of your brain, that is short-circuiting your actual logic, that you haven't, that you probably have some kind of groupthink going on, or you haven't actually formed a real opinion on your own. So,
So how are things at Simple Programmer? Besides getting yelled at over net neutrality.
Well, the death threats are always fun, you know.
I can't believe you got death threats. People are stupid.
I think we had a record month as far as, I mean, we did, obviously we did a Black Friday sale. I think we had a record month even for launches, maybe. I don't know.
This was our
we launched 10 steps.
This was our best month ever. I'm almost positive, because the 10 steps sale, or when we launched 10 steps, we did about 45K total, but that was spaced out over about 2 weeks because a lot of the money, some of the money came in after the sale ended. We need to go back and look. But your overall income then was lower,
right? So
I mean, the product income was, we baselined it when I started working with John. We baselined it at 13,000 for the whole business. So and I think that was after the 10 steps launch too. So it was even lower than that. So I think that at best that was probably somewhere in the mid 50s.
Yeah, but we hit November was 63K month for us revenue. So,
but then that's not even capturing the whole. So
that's true.
We did the Pluralsight. We did the Pluralsight promotion last month. So then that generated 30,000 in commissions, but we won't get the money till this month, but we earned it last month. So if you throw that in there, we were right around 93, 94K.
Nice.
For the month.
But we got to go cash accounting because we're going accrual or a cash. So December will be good as well, and January.
Yep.
So, but so that's good. So that was a big, and the book revenue is boosted us to, it was like 6K last month. So we're probably going to average 6 to 7K on book. Well, actually, when we put out the audio version, I think we'll be hitting around 8K on average on book revenue per month. So that boosts things up quite a bit.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, the book, oh my gosh, the book was it's cool because we're finally I've been talking to Lisa about this and explaining, like, okay, like, yes, we did all this work for the entire first half of the year. We saw nothing, right? Like our revenue was basically flat because it was all book. And then none of that money even came in for 3 months or so after we did the book launch. So then starting in September, we finally were starting to see that money coming in and all the fruits of all that work that we did. it was like super deferred gratification.
Nice. Very cool.
But yeah, so I'm gonna get a Christmas bonus for the first time in my life. I was telling John, every time I've done every job I've ever had, I always came in the year after they stopped doing the Christmas bonuses.
Yeah.
So like the one like one of my jobs, like they went from doing like a several $1,000 Christmas bonus to the developers to like they'd give you like a gift certificate for a ham. It was like, oh, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
So yeah, this will be my first ever.
I started reading the book Profit First. I think Chuck, you had read this, right?
So good. Yep.
And it was kind of funny. I mean, I'm listening to the audio version. I probably should get the print version, but I was like, oh, I felt so good, like listening to the book, because I was like, we're awesome because we're doing this. Like nice. we basically started our business with the Profit First mindset, right? I mean, because we've been paying ourselves for from the very beginning, like, and so it was kind of interesting to hear these stories of these people that were making huge revenue numbers and were scraping, not paying themselves and not taking any profit, and so it's like, oh, we're doing it right. So I don't know if there's much that we're gonna that I'm gonna learn from the book, except that like a reinforcement of, because sometimes I did have the doubts, like maybe we should be spending more money, to grow revenue. And now this confirms it. No, I mean, like, yeah, you need to spend but wise investments, right? Where we actually think it will. So we've been running a pretty good account. In fact, I think our system, I mean, I'm biased, but I actually think that the way that we're doing our accounting is better than the Profit First suggestion, because the Profit First suggestion is one for people that need to have some safety rails, right? Because they if you need to cut up your credit card, it's kind of like that for me. But if you're already we make all our business decisions based on, if we invest this money, will it return us a higher return? So we never had the mindset of Simple Programmer of what a lot of entrepreneurs have, which is grow revenue and take profits later. Ours has always been like, if we do something, if we hire someone, if we invest money somewhere, will we get more than what we invest back? And every expense kind of is weighed against the return. At least that's how we think about most of our things. And then also I love it made me think about like the principle that I always talk about, Simple Programmer, of like, we'd rather have automation and 50% less revenue. Because that goes right in line with Profit First, because that means that the maintenance on that, that the expense will be lower on that. So it's a good book for sure. Like I'm not knocking the book, but it was kind of like, oh, hey, this is cool. It's like more of a validation.
Yeah. One thing that I would like to do would be to come up with a percentage of basically to come up with a budget for ourselves as far as like additional expenses, or because we've got right now what we have is we came up with an emergency fund amount that we're going to have. We've got like a baseline emergency fund that is going to be like 10%. What is it? 10% of our annual revenue is what we're targeting, something like that, just to give us, so we're not ever worried about like meeting payroll for the next month.
Yeah.
So we've always got that cushion in there. But I'd kind of like to have like a guideline that we look at, like as far as additional investments as a percentage. So we're not, I don't know. I would just like to have that conversation at some point.
Yeah.
We're running pretty low on our overall expenses right now, so it's not really a big deal. Our revenue's so far beyond what we're spending, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things to question or to think about too is like, at some point you do have to weigh like, where can you put money that will actually increase your revenue and profit? And that's where it's like, I think if we have enough money left over, that we should look at, like, a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we hire a Facebook ad person or something.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, like it's like, okay, so if we have, just to make up numbers, if we had like $30,000 a month coming in that was extra, we don't want to just go well, we should invest all this.
Right, exactly. Right? Yeah.
But it would be smart to have a percentage that we're looking like, okay, we should be looking to spend more money within this range.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the key. And that's the thing is, like, I was just talking to someone too, and I was like the ultimate hack for business growth is hiring people. Like, if you can do it right, because then the business grows without your work. Like, if you have right people, and I think we're sort of like, I feel like we're kind of going to hit that momentum point with the new hire, with Mitch coming on the team. And then if we get the writer, and the writer becomes a full-time person who's constantly pumping this out and being responsible for the whole launch of the book and everything, then I feel like we could get to the point where, like, these things are able to grow on their own, and the revenue is able to grow. Right. And, you know, and if you really get to the point where if you have someone, I think the biggest, like, turning point is probably where you hire the person that has the ability to hire people. Right, because then they're actually growing the company, right? Not just the revenue, but they're growing the company itself. And that's, so when you get to that point as a business owner, that's a really cool point, because then it's like, you know, you have like a sustainable growth that doesn't require you to be, you know, cranking.
I mean, that's basically hiring a president, right?
It doesn't necessarily have to be.
I mean, the CEO.
It doesn't necessarily have to be that level of position. It could just be someone who has a department that they are growing, you know, growing revenue wise.
Right.
Yes, you give them an area of responsibility and essentially a budget to hire people.
Yeah. So, like, and that's kind of happened a little bit with Rodrigo, right? Because Rodrigo has Caesar, and I have been, and you've done the same. We've basically not given Caesar any instruction.
I've never talked to him.
I just told him he's doing a good job, right? That's the only thing. Like, and he's kind of like, he's basically Rodrigo's report, right? I mean, Rodrigo manages them, and, you know, I've told Rodrigo, like, you know, get the blog post thing, like, let's expand his responsibilities a little bit, but Rodrigo's kind of managing him. So that's like that's a good thing, because now we have a person who doesn't take an additional management toll on us in order to get the benefit out of it. So yeah, but yeah, I think that's so. We're going to try and launch the audiobook next week, but Amazon,
that is looking unlikely. so we sent an email yesterday, or was it? Yeah, it was Wednesday. We sent this email out saying, hey, and in passing we mentioned, hey, it was a save the date type email, because John's going to do one of his live video streams on YouTube, and every time we do one of these, the people complain, oh, I wish I'd known about this ahead of time. So we sent an email saying, hey, next week we're going to do this, and we're going to be celebrating the launch of the audiobook. Well, well, Audible has a different idea about that. They want 10 to 14 days to review the book before 10 to 14 business days. And we had no idea. Yeah, we figured it would be like Kindle, where you put it live and it's live within a few hours. I mean, they say 72 hours with Kindle, but it's basically like less than 24 once you hit the publish button. But I think with Audible, they actually do. They must at least spot check it manually, because it's audio, right? There's not really any other way, I guess. So, yeah, so that's going to be fun. We'll
I got a response from them, actually, and they said,
yeah, I saw that, actually. They basically said, we understand that you are concerned about launching your book and you would like us to expedite the release of the book, but unfortunately, we cannot expedite the release of this book. And we are sorry that you are concerned. It was hilarious. It was like a template. It's like that stupid, I hate that stupid template that all the tech support people use. Is like, I understand that's like, they basically been told to repeat the concern back, right? Like repeat the person's question back to them. And then basically they tell you there's nothing they can do.
Hey, at least they're responding, right?
Yep.
We'll see. We'll just adapt to it. I mean, if we just do the live stream and then we get some more hype around the book, and then when it comes out, I still have a feeling. I just responded to their thing and said, no, it doesn't solve my problem. And I said, like, we're expecting to sell like over 1,000 units on launch. It's very time sensitive. And the Kindle version on launch did #5 Wall Street Journal bestseller list. So maybe someone will review it. But I do think that it may just come out, like they might be ready by, sometime
there's a
next week.
possibility. Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's so stupid. Like the Kindle in this is the same way. You have almost no control over scheduling the release of this stuff. Like, how do you not give somebody the ability to control when their audiobook comes out? I mean, I don't. There might be a final release step, John, that we have to do. I don't know, but I kind of got the impression that it would just get published when they were done. It would just appear in the store, and you'd have to scramble.
That's what happens with the Kindle books, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So I don't know. It may just happen that way. Who knows? I don't know. But again, you adapt, right? It's like. Yep. We'll figure it out. It'll be fine. I mean, once we get the Kindle or this audiobook will do really well too. So
nice.
Plus, we're going to be licensing it to Skillsoft. Yeah, Skillsoft. So
nice, cool.
Chuck, I've seen some emails from you this week.
Yeah, I've got some stuff going on. I'm still working on the last one I was going to send today, but I may just send an email that says, "Hey, I told you I was going to get this information to you today, but I was throwing up all night last night, so I didn't get all my stuff done, and I will do it. I will get you the info on Monday about the new shows, and that'll give me today to finish setting up the Indiegogo campaigns, because I was going to get up this morning and finish them, and I didn't get to sleep till like 5 a.m. because I was throwing up. So,
man."
So I was like, I'm just kind of like, and Friday's not the ideal day, I don't think, to launch that anyway. So, Monday or Tuesday is probably better.
Yeah. So it's the so the final. You were gonna talk about the Slack communities and stuff too, right?
No, I sent that email yesterday.
Oh, that was yesterday. Okay, yeah.
Yep. So. Anyway, I told people to go to Patreon, and if they supported me on Patreon, then they could get in. Of course, I got emails from 2 of the hosts on the show saying, "Can the host get in?" I'm like, "Yeah, here's the link." But with that, I decided to move because initially I had forums for all of the different shows, and they just turned out to be ghost towns. So then I thought, oh, well, maybe people are on Slack. So I switched over to Slack, and those turned out to be ghost towns as well. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to put it all in devchat.tv Slack. And that way, hopefully we get enough people in there that we can, have conversations go on. So that's what I'm aiming at this point. And I may send invitations to anybody who signed up for any of the conferences over the last year and just say, hey, you've sent me money, so you can join the chat, and that way maybe I can seed it with some people. And then I have to pull together numbers for the guy who wants to buy Freelancer Show. I gave him my number, and it didn't turn him off. So
okay, nice.
So we'll see how that goes. And then, this week was just great as far as getting stuff done. So Monday, I got all of the ad management stuff done for the banners, and I have banners in all of the episode lists that are all managed by Podwrench. It's all magical.
Nice.
And the sponsors can log in. They can change the banners and the talking points and stuff in there. And then if they change it, it just automatically gets, done on the devchat.tv side. And if they buy any ad placements, it shows up in a list for them, and then they can actually assign the banner and stuff to that. So it's one unit. It's a creative that has talking points and banners and an audio if I upload one, but I haven't done that on any of them yet. Because the audio is really only useful for the editor. But then the idea is that, it all just gets updated there. So they can fully manage their stuff except for ad reads on the podcasts. So that worked out really nicely. I have a few more things to do there. And what else? There were a couple of other things. We interviewed DHH on Ruby Rogues.
Oh, cool.
So that was awesome. And
has he been on before?
Yeah, we've had him on once before. And we just asked him a bunch of questions. A lot of great stuff. It was really, really great interview. Nice. I have my JavaScript story scheduled out through the end of April. I have lots of interviews, and I hired Michelle. I am totally not playing the Bubba game anymore. So I hired Michelle. She's from Jamaica, and I just was like, hey, look, can you start inviting people for these shows? And that's why I have so many interviews booked for my JavaScript story. And what's funny is I still have more people booking, so I'm going to have to add them to the schedule. So I'm probably booked out through April or May at this point as far as content goes. And then I hired somebody else to help me manage the social media and growth of the shows.
Cool.
And so we'll see how that all starts to shake out. But yeah, and so that's pretty awesome. And this person, she's the, how do you put it? She's related to the ex-husband of my business coach, is how I found her. So she's like, she used to be my sister-in-law, is I think how my business coach put it. Okay. She does all kinds of podcast booking stuff. You should hire her. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, we negotiated out a rate and just made it all happen. So now it's just a matter of making sure that all of the delegation and communication happens. I switched the company off of Slack. I moved it onto a system called Convo. And what it provides you with basically threaded conversations. And Slack does that, but it's not as intuitive. And then yesterday I sat in on a webinar by Tim Francis, who runs Profit Factory, I think is the name of his company.
Oh, I've heard of that. That's they do like accounting and right?
I don't know. He talked about delegation, and
yeah.
So he basically provided us with a delegation system, and so I'm going to be doing things mostly along those lines. Probably not 100%, but pretty close. But it kind of gave me a framework for thinking about this stuff. And he gives you levels of the stuff that you're supposed to be doing, and then he basically says you shouldn't be doing anything but the top 2 levels. And he's like, even then, eventually, what you wind up doing is you hire somebody you trust, who has high level skills or high level access, who can do the next to top level, and then you're just doing strategy, and unless there's something else that you just absolutely have to be doing. Like in my case, the podcast hosting is something that technically it falls in the bottom 3, but for me it's I want to be the personality, I want to be on the show, so it's kind of a different deal. But pretty much everything else, so some of the things that I felt like I will never be able to outsource this, I'm having a good hard look at and going, okay, what will it take for me to outsource sponsorship sales? What will it take for me to outsource some of this other stuff? And it turns out that like some of the things that I felt like I needed the relationship with people for, like inviting them to come on my JavaScript story and stuff, they don't care if it comes from me. They really don't. And so, I've got somebody sending those emails. And
yeah, anyway. It's funny you mentioned that, because I just this week got invited to do a podcast by a VA of somebody who I know, and I was like, okay, didn't really even. I mean, he basically used the guy's name, and so I made the connection. But yeah, I was like, it didn't give it a second thought.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, just stuff like that, just getting all of that done. So I'm going to be using a mix of Asana and Convo to manage all this stuff. And we'll see if we can make it all work pretty seamlessly. But I've been pretty happy with the way things are going. I got started on the Indiegogos, and then I was, last night just kind of blew up. So anyway, it's just been a really, really great week. Also, the sponsor that sponsored all the shows through the end of the year, Linode, they just renewed for all of the shows for Q1. So that worked out. Now my Ruby story, my Angular story.
Were they the big one that you were talking about a while back? That you didn't mention the name. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Now I failed to deliver on some of the episodes. You know, I got behind on a couple of shows.
Yeah.
And so I just basically invoiced them for the difference. But I've got a bunch of other companies that are interested in sponsoring either. I think some of them want to pay me now before the end of the year, like the end of the calendar year or tax year or fiscal year or however they reckon that. And then I've got others that are saying, look, in January, we'll pay you. So anyway, so everything's just kind of starting to fall into place now that I've gotten a little bit more disciplined about keeping track of all of this stuff.
Yep.
And then one last thing is I reached out to a couple of sponsors of some of these conferences. So NG Atlanta is one that's kind of picking up steam. It's an Angular conference. And so I reached out to Kendo UI Progress. And I said, hey, look, do you want to cover my expenses to come to the conference? And then I've been talking to one of the organizers to see if I can, talk my way into getting a free ticket to the conference. And so if I can do that and get a little bit of space to do some interviews, I basically said, yeah, I'll credit you on the interviews. And they sounded really interested in that. So if I can do a couple of shows that way, and then I'll probably start saying, okay, well, now it'll cost you, because I told them it was like $2,500. That'll cover my hotel, airfare, and food. But yeah, then if I can, I may go to somebody else for another conference or a bigger conference and say, hey, do you want to pay? Do you want to pay my way and then some, and see if I can actually start making money doing these? Because the other thing is I get all the networking, I get to meet people, I can organize meetups at the conference. I mean, there are all kinds of other ways I can make it pay off. And so I get paid, plus I get to go and do publicity stuff. And so I think it'll be a really interesting way to make things move. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I'm excited to see what happens there.
So what's the sell for them on the sponsoring you for the conference?
So essentially my plan is I'm going to set up a camera and then just sit down with whoever I'm interviewing, we'll have mics. I haven't quite figured that bit out. I have some Shure SM58s and I have a Zoom H6. So I have equipment that I can record it on today. But the trick is you have to hold the mic up by your face and,
Right.
So I have to kind of train the person I'm interviewing for a little bit to make sure that they're getting good sound. And then the other trick is just making it all sync up, right? If I have to sync up audio and video, I don't know how much of a pain that'll be. But the flip side is that, I could just go down and do these interviews. And then what they get is they get like a little sponsored by in the
I see.
footer of the video.
Yeah.
They'll also get kind of an honorable mention somewhere in the podcast episode or in the interview, so that if I use it as a podcast episode or repurpose it some other way, they'll get a verbal shout out. So that's the sell for them. And then if anyone's interested in, extra content for the conference, either because they were there or because they watched a talk or something, then they can, they'll get exposure that way. So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I think then you can charge for the travel and a premium above that too. So
yeah. And then of course my phone starts ringing right then. But yeah, so that's the plan. And then I'm working with the conference organizer. He's actually going to be on the show in 2 weeks on Adventures in Angular. So I'll probably just talk to him then, if not before, and just be like, hey, look, this'll, because what it does for the conference is it extends the conference exposure period for a few months as I release the videos. And so that works out for them, right? It raises awareness for a little bit longer. And then next year, people are like, oh, that was the conference that Chuck was at talking to all these cool people. So. Anyway, so that's kind of the idea there.
Nice.
And then I'm also lining people up to talk to at CES.
But when is CES?
Nice.
CES is January 7th through 13th.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I have a calendar right up here. It's like a 6 foot by 3 foot wall calendar for the whole year next year.
Oh, nice.
So I've got that up there. There's another conference in Oakland called Developer Week.
Okay. Yeah.
And they've offered me a free ticket, so I've got to figure out getting out there. So I'm thinking about doing the same thing, reaching out to one of their sponsors and seeing if I can get them to pay my way out there.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I think this could work. I mean, you'll have to see how many people take you up on it, but yeah. I like the idea.
Well, the other thing is, and this is something else that I'm thinking about doing, is finding a way to do like, because they have an expo floor at Developer Week. And so just set up like, have a camera and just stand it up and then just do video interviews.
Yeah.
Right on the expo floor. Oh, hey, you're a company, you do this. We represent developers. What do you do that's interesting to developers? Or maybe we can talk to some of your developers or, something like that. And, just have a 5 or 10 minute conversation about their product or whatever on the expo floor.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing is then what happens is I can look at them and I can essentially get information for their marketing people, because I can say, look, if if you're not the marketing person, if you get the information for the marketing person, I can let you and them know when the video's up. But then the other thing is then I can start working with the marketing people to see if I can get podcast sponsorships and other things going. And, so it's half a gimmick and half more content.
Yeah.
To get contacts, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and you can test it out and see if if it ends up being profitable for you to be there. Like if those contacts pan out at the conferences or not. But
yeah.
And then at least you're not risking the money. You know what I mean? Like you're getting paid to do it. So
yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of the deal there. So anyway, just lots of great stuff going on this week. And I would have had the Indiegogos done if I hadn't been puking my guts out last night.
Yeah.
No excuse.
I know, right? Well, I'll spare you the gory. Well, maybe I won't, but I got some crud in my sinuses when I was throwing up, and so it created this pressure and burning sensation across my head. So, my wife introduced me to the joys of the neti pot. And that helped a bunch. And then just sitting in a warm bath with the steam.
Probably didn't, but after that, what you were dealing with before probably didn't feel so bad.
No, it cleaned a bunch of stuff out. It was actually kind of amazing. I'm like, I didn't even know I had that much crud in there. But yeah, just sitting in a warm bath and the steam helped a lot too. But I still had a headache and the burning sensation behind my eyes for a few hours. Finally, took some ibuprofen, and that I think it helped with the inflammation.
Yeah.
And so then I finally went to sleep at like 4:30 or 5. Oh. Anyway, so
very, very important to get the correct alignment of the angling on the puking.
I know, right?
Coming up, going through the nose, or
yeah.
Back into the head.
So you guys were talking martial arts techniques before the show, and now we're talking puking technique. This is awesome.
Wow.
All right, should we do our thoughts?
Yep. Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I get on here and I'm like, "Hey guys, I need your advice on this stuff." And this week it was just, "Hey, this was full of wind. It was nice."
That's great. I'm excited. I feel like you are getting some real traction here, and like you're getting the machinery is coming together.
Yeah,
pieces of the machinery are starting to click together, and man, when you get that machine all up and running, it's gonna be pretty incredible.
Yeah. I'm working on documenting a lot of it in. I have a wiki set up on pbwiki.com, and what that'll allow me to do is then when I want to offload it, then I can say, hey, look, all the templates and all the procedures are there. Obviously you have some autonomy here as far as, if you feel like there's a better way or you find something works better, change it. Just let me know so that if I'm working on it for whatever reason, anyway, so that's kind of the deal there.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, the big tools that I'm using these days are Convo and Pipedrive for all the outreach. And anyway, it's been a terrific week. And I think really what it is that, I think last week I talked about my confidence issues, and I've complained a lot on the show over the last 6 months, if we're going into thoughts. And everything just kind of stacked up to the point where, things actually are starting to really really start to hit. So I'm pretty darn happy with a lot of it. And you know what? It's just going to get better, as I make plans on how I want to continue to manage this and make sure that things are getting done and stuff like that. But I'll tell you too, one of the big things is that it's become pretty apparent that Michelle and Dee are A players, and that makes a big difference too, because I don't have to babysit them. I'm going to put it in Asana so that it'll kick me in the head and say, hey, Michelle got her thing done. But they're just out there winning for me. One thing that she mentioned yesterday, I think it was that she had invited, I don't see it here anymore, but she's been inviting people for Ruby Rogues, and so she sent out, oh, here we go. So I pointed her at Ruby Weekly. She sent out 11 invites. She added 32 prospects to the pipeline, and so now she's just got to go find contact info for those folks. And as people come back on like my JavaScript story and say stuff like, I'm not doing JavaScript anymore, she's starting to get to the point where she can she can field a lot of that and make it happen. And she's very communicative with me, which really helps, because if she needs something, she just gets it. So anyway, it's
Chuck, you deserve somebody like this. It's been a long road.
Yeah. Well, and it's the thing that's frustrating to me about that is that Dee was a referral, and so that works out kind of nicely. You get a referral for an A player, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
But you can't always do that, and so my other option is to luck into somebody on Upwork, which is what happened with Michelle. And so I still don't have a good way if I need to hire another A player for really finding them.
I mean, it wasn't so much lucking into it. I mean, you just you had to keep plugging away at it.
Yeah.
You did the system. You just did it over a year to a year and a half long span.
Yeah.
So it took a long time, but I mean, we just went through this whole thing with the writers, and we went through 70 plus people to find one really good person, and ended up being the person was from our audience. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is that as your audience grows, you'll have more possible resources in the audience too.
Yeah. And then I think another just piece of it was like Shandy. I think she would be a terrific employee for somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. I think there were just parts of her personality and parts of my personality that synced up properly to give us a real blind spot in some of these areas.
Yep.
And that's just like, I mean, you just have to like, what the standard is, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
And that's the thing, is like, they have to be of that caliber. And sometimes you can test people out for a while and see, but if it's not like, this person's awesome, I'm excited to have them, then you just have to get rid of it. I mean, a lot of people will say, well, they're okay, but they have to be awesome.
It's like once you taste it, like once you have, like for me, the benchmark is, Rodrigo and Aaron, Like I've worked now. I know what it's like to have somebody of that caliber, and so it's just not acceptable to have somebody on the team that's not like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. So I mean, it's just and then once you get them, then good, But it'll just be that process of doing it. And like Josh said, with the writers, we went, but it was apparent when we found the the right, and we're still not 100% sure. We're still testing, right? But it's pretty. We're looking at it and saying, yeah, this is most likely. This is what it takes to actually be a stellar. Like, when you're like, okay, this person blows away everyone else. But there's a lot of them out there. This is a large world, so it's not like you found the only one, right? I mean, there's hundreds more. So you just have to be picky enough, right? And that's also why I like that whole the favoring automation is because I want people that don't have to be managed, that take the initiative, that do, and those are the people that, if you build your team around that, then that's the best way, I think. So.
Yep. But yeah, so I mean, we've talked a lot about a lot of the banging my head against the wall, and I guess my thought really is that, I kept reaching up and, kind of grabbing the next ledge and pulling myself up, and it hurt. The rocks cut into my hands figuratively. My muscles got sore figuratively. I got a little bit burned out, or a lot of it burned out figuratively. I had things come up that took up my time, and I got stuck on the ledge for a little while.
Yeah.
But, now I feel like I'm coming out on top of the mountain, and, that's just huge for me is, oh, okay. We can have some win, and it feels good, but sometimes it takes 6 months or so of a hard slog.
So my theme for me this week has been trying to help people remove barriers that they want to set up between them and their customers. So I've had a bunch of people email conversations and stuff back and forth with people who are I have this one guy, and he's got the sales funnel that's almost working. He's getting tons of opt-ins, and he emailed me and he's like, all right, well, I'm thinking about creating an offer like this, and he can't seem to quite make that jump from email opt-in to conversion at that last step. And he's telling me about all these different offers he wants to try and everything. I'm like, whoa, why don't you just he does consulting. One of the goals is ultimately to get people to consult with him. So why don't you just put a video on your thank you page, talking about your consulting, and then have a live chat widget there, or give them a way to call you from that thank you page, because there's a timing element too. Basically, when they opt in, they're really, really hot to buy, and then after that, even a few hours later, they might be not interested anymore. And he's talking about all this machinery and I'm like, no, you don't know what machinery you need to build. And so people, I have another guy I've been working with a little bit, and he's trying to figure out he's trying to figure out if there's going to be a market for this software that he has. And he was talking to me about okay, I'm going to run Facebook ads, and I'm going to send them to this landing page, and what should my opt-in bribe be? I'm like, look, we don't know anything about these people yet. I can't tell you, we can't make up a good opt-in bribe. And then if you do, now you've got the problem of you got to write good emails to get them there. I'm like, no, look, run LinkedIn in-mail messages and try to get people to reply to you personally and talk to them. That is, if you're going to, basically just automate enough that you can get some additional reach to where you're not manually, sitting down and trying to connect with people directly. We try to get more reach with the automation, but don't try to automate beyond that, because you don't freaking know anything about what these people want. Just try to get them on the phone. And there's there's 6 layers of bulletproof glass between you and your customer, and you're saying, do you want this? And they're going, and they're shaking their head back and forth, and you're going, oh, I guess and all they're saying is, I can't hear you.
Right.
They actually they freaking want it, but there's 6 layers of bulletproof glass. So let's get rid of some of those layers and try to get, make it as frictionless as possible to get you. I told the one guy, I said, if I could wave a magic wand, I'd have them go, like, they find your webpage, they read it, they click a button, and you magically appear next to them in the room and start talking to them, right? That would be perfect. Yeah. So get as close to that as you can. And then, at first, and then when you really understand what they're looking for and what they want, then you can start thinking about, okay, how do I automate this, and what other pieces can I bring in? So just taking down those barriers is so critical early on.
Let me see. I've actually got 2 today. I'm going to violate protocol. So one of them is just for making decisions, because this has come up a lot from my own thing and then from people emailing me. It's just like, project forward 5 years from now. What's going to happen? Either if you decline to make a decision, will you be constantly trying to make that decision again? Or, just from the various decisions that you can make, or if you keep on doing what you're doing for 5 years, or you change what you're doing. So I think that's a good way to help to make decisions. It's just to say, okay, project this forward 5 years, not making a decision, what will happen? Yep. Making decision A, what will happen? Making decision B, what will happen? Right. Or, and that's just a good exercise. I think that makes it a lot more clear. The other one I was thinking about, I was in my Muay Thai class last night, and I've told you guys that Dave, the instructor, he's a hard ass, right? And there was some confusion of what should we do in the class, right? Like, should we put on our pads, or should we do this? And I was like, okay, let's switch, let's go ahead and do this. And my partner that I was working with, he was like, oh, I don't know if we should, because Dave kind of gets pissed off if you do things without him telling you, or so there's kind of this situation, and there's a lot of times in that situation where it's no matter what you fucking do, you're going to get yelled at, right? No matter what, if you he's going to be he's either going to be why aren't you, or you fucking idiot, why don't you do this, do you need me to tell you everything, or why didn't you wait for me to tell you? You think you're just right? So either way, and there's a lot of situations in life where it's no matter what you do, you're going to get burned. So my response was, I was like, okay, well, we're just going to do it. And I said, Dave, this is what we're doing. Right. And he was like, cool. Right. So it was he could have come back with a response. It didn't matter what his response was. My point was that if you're in a situation, and a lot of times you are in life, where whatever you do, you feel like you're going to get burned, you might as well get burned taking a smart, decisive action than one doing nothing. So if I'm given that choice in that situation, I'm going to do what I think is best, because I know I'm going to get a fucking slap anyway. So I might as well do what I think is best and get the slap, rather than sitting back on my ass because I'm afraid that I'm going to get the slap. You see what I'm saying? It's just do, and so I think that's just in general, just something you can apply is when you're in that, because you don't always know the answer, and it just feels like whatever you choose is going to be a painful situation. But doing nothing is almost always the worst. At least if you're going to get kicked in the nuts, get kicked in the nuts for doing something, not for doing nothing, because that's way more beneficial.
Nice. Yep. When you're in the middle of the highway and the semi truck is bearing down, it's better to jump into the other lane rather than sit there while the truck runs you over.
Yeah, one of them is guaranteed. If you're just hoping that it'll pass, miss you, that's a bad strategy. I'd rather die trying than to try dying. There we go.
Nice.
All right,
guys.
All right. See you next week.
Yeah. Bye.